A very good morning and welcome to NTV Today. It's 3 minutes past 9. My name is Ken Mijungu, and on this day we are going to discuss about youth issues. It's a Thursday, so it's a good day to discuss about youth issues. And by the way, the draft youth development policy is ready. We'll take a keen look at that with my panel this morning. And of course, we're following stories happening around the nation for you and also internationally. We'll be telling you about everything that's happening around you. And we are live from the counties. We'll be live from the county of Murang'a, where we'll have Martin Maura. He'll be speaking about the same topic. Then we'll cross over to Bernardo Joang in Migori. We'll touch on this topic with Bernard, but mostly he'd like to speak about the courses that are useless. Well, you know about it. By now, you know there are courses that have been gazetted as useless, as adding no value to your life after your degree or your graduation. So he'd like to talk about that. We'll also try and find Kevin Mutai in Mombasa to speak to him also about what's happening. And obviously in the capital, there's a lot of things that are happening. But first, let's take you back to yesterday about some stories that made your headlines yesterday. And let's begin from Kisii, where President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday reignited the anti-corruption campaign by once again asking those found culpable to carry their own cross and desist from ethnicizing the fight on graft. Now, the president's remarks came at a time when the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has turned the glare at the anti-graft fight on the cabinet, as NTV's Oko Kusa now reports.
The president, who was speaking this afternoon in Kisii town, asked government officials caught up in the corruption web to be prepared to face the music alone.
Kwa nini tuseme msalaba wa Matiang'i ni wa msalaba wa Kisii? Kwa nini tuseme msalaba wa Uhuru ni msalaba ya Wakikuyu? Msalaba ya mwizi ni wake, abebe, apumzike. Hao ni namna gani wenzangu?
Uhuru lamented that it was unfair to politicize the fight against graft, yet it had cost the country a lot of pain.
Hii vita ni yetu sisi wote kama Wakenya. Tuungane ndio tuhakikishe ya kwamba tumemaliza hiyo vita na wananchi wamepata haki yao. Au ni namna gani wenzangu?
President Kenyatta, who was accompanied by his deputy William Ruto and political foe turned friend Raila Odinga, lauded the Building Bridges initiative, which he said had created a conducive atmosphere for development in the country.
Na sisi tuliamua ya kwamba tumewachana na siasa ya kufuruga wa Kenya. Na lengo letu sasa ni kuhakikisha ya kwamba tumeunganisha wa Kenya na kuhakikisha ya kwamba wa Kenya hawatamwaga damu tena ati kwa sababu ya siasa.
Tulipoanza 2013 kusema ya kwamba lazima tuwache siasa ya ugomvi na fitina na chuki na ukabila, wewe umesukuma hiyo gurudumu mpaka leo tumeketi hapa na ndugu yetu Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga kufuatia mazungumzo yako na yeye kwamba tuweke wa Kenya pamoja.
Raila told the gathering that they will be touring the entire country in the coming months to popularize the handshake.
Ili wananchi waweze kujua na kusherehekea mambo ya kushikana mkono. Maana yake ni nini? Baada ya ile mvurutano, ile mereka ya mwaka juzi, tulisema tuache yale yaliyopita, tuangalie yajayo, sio? Hiyo ndio muhimu zaidi, na yale yote tumeacha kwa maandishi.
This was the first time President Kenyatta was visiting Gusiland after his re-election in 2017. Ohuko Kusa, NTV.
Well, very interesting, and that was not the first time the president was speaking about carry your own cross. But let's move on. And counties that have paid enhanced allowances to nurses risk losing funding in the next financial year. The Controller of Budget has instructed 4 counties that paid the nurses to recover the money and issue a caution letter to the said counties. Now, the letters to the county governors of Mombasa, Migori, Machakos, and Kwale ordered the devolved units to recover all the enhanced allowances paid to the nurses. Now, the controller's warning came as the president asked nurses to go back to work, saying there is no money to accommodate their demands for better pay. NTV's Eunice Molo with those details.
The control of budget has the Mombasa, Migori, Kwale and Machakos County governors in its sights for using public funds to pay nurses allowances that have not been authorized by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, SRC. Strike notices had not been issued in these counties as they were the only county governments that had honored the return to work agreement signed in 2017. The letter addressed to Governors Hassan Joho, Okoth Obado, Salim Vuria and Alfred Mutua stated, the office is aware that the county government is paying allowances to nurses contrary to those approved by SRC. Payment of allowances without SRC's advice is contrary to the law. Therefore, the purpose of this letter is to request that you do not pay any enhanced allowances to the nurses until approved by SRC. The Controller of Budget's office has demanded that the counties recover all the monies paid to the nurses that were not approved. Please note that failure to comply with this request could be deemed as a serious material breach and occasion stoppage of transfer of funds. In Kisii, the president's latest remarks on the strike are a reflection of the Control of Budget sentiments.
Kutoka mimi mpaka ule mwisho, lazima tujue ya kwamba hatuwezi tu kuwa ya kwamba kilio chetu kila siku ni mshahara na tumbo zetu mbele ya kuhudumia Wakenya. Pesa haitoshi na hakuna wakati itatosha.
Sakakati hata watu kama wanaongea, wagonjwa wasiokufe, wagonjwa wasiumie kwa sababu wauguzi wameenda wamegoma. Wewe umefanya training ya kutibu watu. Usiwache watu wanakufa tu wewe unadai pesa. Tafadhali. Wangapi wanasema wauguzi warudi kwa kazi nione kwa mkono.
The letter comes a week after the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, SRC, raised concerns about payment of nurses' allowances, indicating that counties had no capacity to pay and those that had claimed to have the budget to had not proved that they would sustain the payments. On Monday, in a joint statement, the Ministry of Health and the Council of Governors had continued to pile pressure on the striking nurses to return to work as the Nurses Union maintains the strike is still on. Eunice Omolo, NTV.
Away from that, let's cross over to Murang'a to speak to Martin Mwaura. He'll be speaking about our topic of today, but right now he is in court. He's following up the story about the stolen motor vehicles in that area. Over the last few weeks, we've had the issue of duplicating number plate, and it's been a big issue. Let's join him to brief us what to expect from court. Martin, good to see you, and good morning from Nairobi. What exactly is happening in court, and which are these cases that we're talking about?
Yes, thank you so much, Ken. It's a good morning, and actually it's a bright Thursday morning from County 021. As you have rightly said, we are coming live from Murang'a local, where we are following up on cases, various cases. But the case that which we have the most interest is there's 4 people who were arrested yesterday by the CID. Those are 3 women and a gentleman who were nabbed by the CID yesterday in Nairobi and brought to Murang'a. This follows up an increase in cases where breakings of cars and even motor vehicle theft in Murang'a. On this particular case, last weekend there was a couple who came to Murang'a and they stopped at a nearby restaurant to have lunch before they proceeded with their journey. But these 4 people who were arrested, the three lady and the gentleman, were nabbed on the CCTV using a master key to break into the vehicle and stole all the valuables that were in that vehicle. These cases have been on the increase in Murang'a for a long time, and they have gone unabated. But thanks to the CCTV footage at a local restaurant, that these people were able to be arrested. Every weekend, the CID are telling me that every weekend they must have a case or 2 about these car thefts in Murang'a. Now they're saying this is a big breakthrough, and they will not relent until they see that they bring all the thieves to book. Another thing that is happening in Murang'a, Ken, is there have been cases of M-Pesa and M-Pesa theft. You hear that agents, they're saying that their mobile phones, which they use to do transactions, have been stolen. There's a cartel that is going around. What they are doing is one engages the cashier and makes sure that as the other one checks, the person who engaging the cashier pretends that he's transacting, but the other person his eyes is looking at the M-Pesa phone that the cashier is using. Then they later steal that phone, they go away with it, and they withdraw all that amount. These cases are on the increase in Murang'a, and I've been told that there are more than 10 cases since the beginning of this year. So they're asking the M-Pesa agents to be very keen when dealing with these people. Another issue that we are following up on from Murang'a County, Ken, is the issue of tea farming in Murang'a. It has become a thorn in the flesh. As you heard yesterday, Ken, the KTDA chairman, that is Mr. Peter Kanyago, made an announcement that KTDA is going to increase 1 shilling for every green leaf per kg that is taken to a factory. This has brought a lot of uproar, as the farmers are saying that it is too little, because it has gone from 15 shillings to 16. They're saying that they were expecting it to go to 20 shillings, because tea farming, they're saying it is tedious, but they don't reap the benefits of their sweat. But Ken, I'm in court particular about that case of where the 3 women and gentlemen who are aged between 45 and 55. You can imagine. It is an age that somebody is supposed to be, spending time with family, but they're out here terrorizing innocent residents by breaking into their vehicles. Even cases of motor vehicles being stolen are on the increase. As you have rightly said, yes, issues of number plates, vehicles being stolen and number plates being switched to another number plate. They are very rampant. So the police are saying that they're not going to relent until they bring all the culprits to book. They're saying their days are numbered. Back to you, Ken. I'll be coming live from maybe at around 10 when they'll be presented. Back to you, Ken.
Right, so Martin Moura will be joining us at 10 when those suspects go to court. 3 women and 1 gentleman accused of breaking into motor vehicles. They were captured on CCTV camera. Is a story Martin shared with us. And of course, in Murang'a, it looks as though it's crime, apart from that agricultural story. So right, Martin will be joining us later. But before we come to studio, we'll also be speaking to Lois Wangoi from Eldoret. She's also be speaking about the same topic of discussion we have this morning. That's the youth development policy. A draft is ready, and with me in studio is a gentleman and a lady who will be helping in that discussion. I'll be introducing them shortly. But first, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission plans to seize and freeze assets of top Samburu County government officials implicated in the 2 billion shillings misappropriation investigations. Now, the EACC's net yesterday widened to include the governor, his assistant, the county assembly speaker, and the county executive committee members, as the commission seeks to solidify its case against officials accused of using the county funds to acquire real estate developments. And NTV's Brenda Wanga was there and now reports on the efforts that saw the homes of the governor raided.
For close to 5 hours, the Nairobi home of Samburu Governor Moses Kasaine was host to detectives from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. The detectives chasing a paper trail that they hope will help them unravel the dealings that led to the misappropriation of some 2 billion shillings from the county of Samburu. Another group of sleuths from the EACC was also raiding the governor's Samburu residence as well as his offices at the county government headquarters. The raids informed by investigations that have been ongoing into the financial misappropriation of county funds. EACC says that in just 4 years, the county has lost over 2 billion shillings in suspect dealings. In one case, it is believed that the county officials registered companies and were awarded contracts worth over 700 million shillings. No works on the projects have been done. Contractors were also awarded jobs worth over 1 billion shillings. The contractors either did not finish the projects they were hired to do, or they simply never attempted to do them. Aside from the governor, Moses Kasaine, Lenol Kulel, The EACC is also investigating his personal assistant, Simon Etienne Leleset, the Speaker of the County Assembly, Solomon Lempere, various county chief officers, county executive committee members, and contractors who were awarded tenders by the county. The EACC says it has evidence that millions of shillings were paid in bribes to various county employees by the companies awarded tenders. EACC believes that these officers were involved in the gross financial misappropriation, conflict of interest, and embezzlement of funds in an organized and systematic manner. The proceeds of these crimes are believed to have been invested in real estate development. The commissioner says it will be moving to recover the public funds lost from the county by freezing and seizing the assets acquired fraudulently by the suspected officials from Samburu County. Brenda Wanga, NTV.
Well, Stella Nderitu from ELF, that's the Emerging Leaders Foundation. She is the programs officer. She joins me in studio. So is Raymond Ocheng, the Secretary, Youth Affairs, State Department of Youth Affairs. They join me in studio to discuss the issue of the youth development policy. And we're joining Lois Wangoi shortly to speak to her. She has a panel in studio to talk about the same thing. But just one question for you each. I'll begin with Stella. Stella, is it a review or a complete makeover of the youth policy?
It is a validation of the inputs made during the review.
Okay.
That's what is happening now.
Validation?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Your view?
It is getting the critical voices that will then inform a good policy, because if we don't have a good policy, we'll have bad legislation.
Okay.
But this is a game changer, because 2010 Constitution of Kenya, 2010, since then the policy has never been reviewed.
Okay.
Emerging issues, youth now being seen not as a vice, but as an opportunity. How do we harness that?
Great. So we're discussing that with them shortly, but first let's cross over now to Eldoret, where Lois Wangoi is also on standby. Over to you, Lois.
Yeah, and what are the contents of the youth policy?
Many thanks, Ken, and good morning to you, dear viewer. We continue with that very conversation as the government plans to launch the National Youth Policy, and with me in studio to understand if the youth are excited about it and what they will be expecting from that particular item from the government are two young persons from the county of Uasin Gishu. Seated next to me, and ladies first, is Madam Caro Chirono. Many thanks for joining us, Caro, and karibu sana. And we also have Dennis Tirop, a young man who also serves in the county government of Nandi, but a resident of Uasin Gishu. Karibuni sana, and many thanks. So for the longest time, there has been this conversation, before we even get to the National Youth Policy itself, this conversation of the youth being more engaged and being more proactive in matters governance and even development. Dennis, from where you sit, do you feel that the government has gradually and continually made efforts towards this?
Thank you, Lois. First of all, I think the space of the youth within the national policy of Kenya is gradually being guaranteed, because when you look at the political and economic spectrum, most of what happens and what drives the economy has a lot of youth in it. Okay. When you look at the current parliament, there's a lot of representation. When you look at the local assemblies, there's a lot of representation by the youth. When you look at the county governments as well, both in the cabinet and the technical staff, there's a lot of representation from the youth. So I think in as much as we are not yet there per se, it's at least hopeful that the youth are being involved and their voices are being heard. Okay. So it's not that bad a situation, really.
All right. And Caro, do you feel that the many tools that you already have in place are working before we even introduce different items, say that like those that will be introduced to us through the National Youth Policy?
Yes, they are working, though not exhaustively. And in this case, when we talk about the affirmative action that actually favors the youth, when you talk about the legislature that has included the youth, the nomination, we've seen the youths actually participating and taking up their roles, but they have not done it exhaustively. So already I feel the tools that are in place are there, they are working, but they need to be pressed more. They need to give us more results so that we can move forward as a country. Yeah.
And who needs to pull their socks some more, the government or the youth themselves?
Both sides. for the government and the youth, because you find that this being a new era where the youth is actually involved in leadership, in decision making. Many youths are out there and they don't know what their role is. So I think there's a lot of awareness that needs to take place. There's a lot of effort from the side of the youth to take part and take advantage of these opportunities that the government has availed. The government need to also find other ways of ensuring that the youth participate more and even add more youth-friendly programs.
Yes. And in ensuring that the youth participate more, you have seen the youth come out quite strongly, especially in areas of politics. If the last general election is something to look at, like even where you serve in the county government of Nandi, we have a governor who is a youth, the senator, and pretty much most of the members of the county assemblies in Nandi. But away from matters politics, are the youth taking up other platforms to ensure that they're part of the development agenda of this country, or are they restraining themselves around politics?
I don't think they're restraining themselves around politics, really. I just think the reason as to why we tend to think that the youth are more involved in politics is because as a country we have this tendency to give so much coverage to politics and nothing else. But when you look at the entrepreneurial space, a lot of youth are actually doing great things. When you look at the ICT sector, there are so many good initiatives that the youth are coming up with, very, very excellent products, things that actually solve societal needs and problems on a daily basis. So I want to tend to think that these are areas where the government actually needs to have a look at and continue empowering youth on the same, really. But when you look at it critically, you find that there's a serious disconnect between the youth and the government. There are people who are seated in offices coming up with very, very nice, well thought out plans. But then how to roll it out? On paper. Yeah, on paper, but how to roll it out on the grassroots or on the ground is where the challenge comes in. The youth don't know what is in store for them. The government doesn't seem to have enough effort to ensure that the youth know what is in store for them. So that kind of disconnect, I think, is what Carol is talking about, and we actually need to revisit and have a look at whether the policies that we have in place are exhaustively working, and if not, then the youth themselves, who are the targets for these policies, can tell us what exactly it is that is not working and needs amendment. So I think this national youth policy comes in at a very, very timely period.
And Carol, as a youth serving in this country and in the county of Uasin Gishu, maybe you could give us an example of a policy or a tool or an item that the government had put forward for the youth to use or to express themselves in the country's development agenda, but then it became a flop. So then we'll be able to critique and look at where probably the government, even as it plans for this particular launch, these are the areas that they should really focus on to ensure, like what Denny said, there is no disconnect. From what you've seen in the country, do you have an example of something that really had good intentions for the youth, but the disconnect then failed it altogether?
Maybe before I answer that, just to echo what you're saying, that it's not only in politics that we see the youth participating and taking up the challenges involved. Most of the social enterprises currently in Kenya are youth-led. Take, for instance, Youth and Success, that is being led by one Sheila, who is a very youthful lady in this country. Take, for instance, Danson Mushemi in Nairobi, that is a youth who came up with a very good payment system for the whole county. So we have youth in the entrepreneurial space who are not probably getting enough coverage or not getting their product out there, what they do for the community or the society as a whole. You'll also realize that most of the innovative ideas that currently are being implemented in Kenya are youth-led. So the youth and her space or his space currently in Kenya are actually taking up every industry. And I think just the way we are seeing much to do with politics, we should see much of what else they do outside the political arena. And to answer what you've said, the policies that have been put in place and whether we've actually seen the results or there needs to be amendments that need to be done. I think at this point, I would say it is still work in progress. And it will be too early to actually rule out what is already working or not working.
Okay.
I think it's a high time both the government, as I had said earlier, and the youth get to the ground and make use of every policy, every tool that has been put out there. Yeah.
And in my interactions with the youth, Dennis, many a times during these conversations about the youth policy and the youth agenda in the country, what they will always tell you is the struggle is real for us. And many want to argue that the struggle is even bigger for the youth. Is it true, or are the youth just being impatient? Some would want to call them the microwave generation. They want things done, pop, pop, pop.
Okay, we get that accusation so many times.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, the institutions of higher learning, the government has really put much emphasis on 100% transition, for example. From class 8, everybody needs to go to Form 1.
Yes.
But the reality on the ground is that not everybody that does the KCPE exam is primed for secondary school. And I guess that is why we get it wrong for a start. Then once you finish your Form 4, everybody insists that you need to go to university. Not everybody.
What do you mean we're getting it wrong?
We're getting it wrong because not everybody is primed for classrooms. Others have skills that can be developed through the vocational training institutes. Others have skills that can be developed through county agendas and national agendas targeting cottage industries, for example.
Yeah.
So you might find somebody is not that strong in class, but is extremely strong when it comes to skills.
Other skills.
Yeah, other skills. So I want to think as a country, we need to look at our national youth policy in an inclusive manner to ensure that everybody is supported based on where their strength lies. So the reason
and not
why
necessarily
not
the
necessarily
classroom.
the classroom one, because part of the reasons as to why you hear youths complaining so much is because we find like 10,000 graduates every year, but the job market cannot absorb all of them. So what happens to them? So I think the government had a nice idea when they came up with policies like the youth fund, Uwezo fund, but then again we go back to the disconnect. So there's these funds that are available for the youth, but you'll realize that most of them don't know how to access these funds. And when they access these funds, most of them are not well equipped to use them correctly. So you get somebody being given a loan of 2 million, they come try to pump it into their business, it goes down the drain. So the government loses this money, it cannot revolve to come and support another youth next year, for example. But then again, it is not this youth's fault. It is because this youth has decided that I'm going into business, but nobody has taken their time to train them on how to run a proper business. You know, when it comes to balancing your books, marketing your product from farm, for example, to shelf, how do you go through this value chain? So I think that is a gap that needs filling, and nobody else is better primed to do that other than the county governments. For example, in where I work, we have the Department of Trade, Investment and Industrialization, where enterprise development is one whole department. So what do? We go out there to the fields, we look for youth who are innovating around the cottage industry space, be it the small beads, be it machines that maybe...
Who already have startups?
Yeah, they have startups. We have a database of more than 1,000 youths currently. And when you look at the Ministry of Industry in Nairobi, for example, they have these shows and events where people can come and showcase their products. Like a few months back, we had one in Sports Club. In Uasin Gishu were hosting the Nguvu Kazi Jokali exhibition, and Nandi County actually sponsored like almost 25 cottage industry players who came and showcased their products to clients from the entire East Africa region. So we have actually taken up the challenge to go there to the field and train them on business skills. So once they're trained, they can come to the county government and access loans from our revolving fund. And we are trying to deregularize it so that the securities that are required are not too much. You realize that there's a youth, he wants a loan, and you're told you have to bring your title deed. Where do you get it from? It's your father who holds the land, you know.
Yes, and we'll still come to that on the role of counties in the national youth policy, granted that these youths are within our counties. And so the counties must also somewhat have a plan and, of course, integrate it to the national youth policy. We'll still come back to that. In the meantime, Carol, we have also seen the government deliberately create some affirmative action to ensure that our youth are adequately empowered. Is it working? For instance, the 30% provision, where a lot of the county works should be allocated to women, youth and persons with disability. Are these deliberate efforts working, and is it what we actually need?
Yes, they're already working, pleasantly so. But you still find that, just the way Denise has highlighted, you still find that the same youths who opportunities have been created for are not empowered enough to fully exploit these opportunities or to use them exhaustively, as I had mentioned. Now look at a youth who is out there, who's gotten, let's say, a contract to construct a road. This is a youth who doesn't have the required capital, the plant and equipment. They might not even be having the experience to execute the works. So what happens? At the end of the day, having signed a contract, they are not able to deliver. So I think there needs to be some other measures that need to be put in place, and I'm hoping the current policy, that the policy that's yet to be launched, will take this into consideration. That the same youth whose opportunity has been put forth should also be empowered in terms of training, in terms of capital, and any other resource that might be needed to deliver on whatever they're expected to deliver on. And even apart from just the 30%, on matters legislature, on matters nomination, we've seen some MPs currently, like Gideon Keter, who is currently tabling a bill in Parliament to eliminate some of these bottlenecks. For example, the compliance, according to the Chapter 6 of the Constitution, you're required to have the documents that are in compliance with, you know, going to the CID, HELB, CRB and all that to get all those documents, and you're charged. So he's trying to eliminate that as far as the youth is concerned, because the same youth who is expected to produce these documents does not have the money to even maybe have a meal in a day or something like that. We've seen someone like Honorable Sakaja who tabled
Hold that thought, Carol. We'll still come back, and once we come back, we'll start on the issue of inclusivity. Do the youth feel like, even as the government comes up with all these programs and policies, do they feel like they're part of the sitting table that comes up with these particular programs? And at that point, do they then feel like the government is also considering them as the major stakeholders, away from just the government ensuring that they're able to serve its people? We'll come back on that. In the meantime, we take you to my colleague Ken Mijungu, who continues with the same conversation in our Nairobi studios.
All right, Lois Wangoi, thank you very much. And Lois will be coming back to us with her panel, and she will be speaking about the same topic in a little while. But let me bring the conversation back right here in studio. And I have Stella Nderitu, a programs officer at ELF, that is the Emerging Leaders Foundation. And of course, I have the Secretary Youth Affairs, that's Raymond Ocheng. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to share with us your thoughts on the policy. And this is the first time that this policy is being looked at post the 2010 Constitution. And from what you told me earlier is that it's not been aligned. What areas are you seeking to address with this policy specifically?
Ken, thank you so much. In 2007, you remember the milestones that the Constitution of Kenya 2010 brought were the devolved government. And we have now 2 tiers of government. We have the national government and we have the county government. If you look at our policy of 2007, it's still talking about regions. Still talking about provinces. But remember, we have moved away from that. We have now the national and the county governments. County governments, we have 47 governments who, as much as young youth is not a devolved function, but by effect, these counties have got youth functions because they have county executive committee members on youth who are deliberating and dealing with young people. So then that has to be harnessed. The other issue is coordination. How then do we coordinate the youth sector? You're aware that within the civil society, within the county governments, there are many actors that are walking around doing the youth issues. You cannot synergize and have an integrated information that this is what we are doing in terms of the young people. So it is going to also to bring law and order in the sector. We also have Vision 2030 that then this policy has to really look at, and the Big Four agenda, because Big Four agenda right now is huge.
But Big Four agenda is temporary. I mean, you can't put it in a policy.
Yeah, whether it's temporary, but remember it is domiciled and it is extracted from the Vision 2030.
Okay, so there's a way they connect somehow.
Yeah, because way and beyond still you must talk about universal health care, whether we finish the Big Four agenda era.
I like some of the proposals in the policy. I'll be specifically talking about that. But Stella, right straight from your mind, what necessitates, apart from the fact that it's not been aligned, it's been a while since the last review was done, top of your mind, what necessitates this? What is the need? What is the need?
I think first, when you talk about alignment, we have to understand that Kenya has moved. We've progressed with time, and spaces have changed for young people. Industries have changed. When you talk about the workplace of young people, not everybody has an 8-to-5 job. So what happens to the creatives, the bloggers, the writers who work from home? How do you regulate that, and how do you harness on the power of such young people? But what again necessitates this is, why do we review policies? We review them because there are changes that happen in the process, and we want to bring more people. This is a public policy. You want to engage more people into it and make sure that everybody is served. And we also need to leverage on the Constitution of 2010, which takes back power to the people. So that's why we needed to do this, to pick more thoughts of young people and even ask some of the actors that are working with young people, what do they think needs to be included in the policy?
Was public participation done in this? Have the young people been consulted, or it's a small team sitting somewhere and deciding this is what the youth needs, Stella?
Yeah, public participation was done.
Okay.
What maybe we need to discuss is, was it adequate?
Okay.
Did everybody get a chance to do this? And remember, when we did the first review, the ministry opened up public participation. And when we saw when the civil society sector realized that this was not enough, I saw youth-serving organizations begin to create their own platform, coming together and discussing it and actually sharing their statements with the ministry. So public participation was done. Maybe in future we just need to do it more and more and involve more stakeholders.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking that is a while ago, the Speaker of the of the Senate said that when he was the governor, and he said, you know, I've been on both sides. And what usually happens during public participation is, you know, we call a few of our friends, sit with them, and then they'll ratify what exactly we want and not necessarily what other people want. And now you're steering this agenda, right?
Yes. And Ken, I think Stella answering was much better, because from an insider point of view, it would have been maybe I'm defending government.
Yes, we would have.
But at the end of the day, I was on the other side. I was the CEO National Youth Council, and we could really push the government that, you know, we are the young people. Now I'm on this other side. And I'll tell you, we really appreciate in terms of the effort that have been done. And again, the government creates a platform. And the civil society youth-serving organizations have done a tremendous job. Some of them have taken this policy and gone down and broken it down to their specific courts, because we brought private sector, and private sector is still the informal, and the formal we have the border. So all these specialized groups went and cascaded this document. We told them there is no harm. Actually, by the day that we were validating for the youth-serving organization, there was a meeting before by CSA Place, by various groups that were just looking at it so that they can give a very concerted, solid input.
Okay.
Yes.
There is an argument, Stella, that this review inevitably denies the Youth Council the autonomy. The CEO was supposed to be here, but unfortunately he's not here. But it's sort of, I don't want to talk to him because he's an insider. So you tell me, does it deny the Youth Council the autonomy that it deserves and requires in order to operate? Because I hear it takes it, is it to the State Department, strictly speaking, as a parastatal. So it denies that autonomy.
Yeah. That's our concern.
Yes.
This body is supposed to regulate and offer what can you say, a watchdog role. It's supposed to offer oversight for young people's development funds. And so when it's under a ministry, when it's under a department, then we wonder how does it then become independent and be able to speak out about youth funds? And we know what has happened to a lot of youth funds in this country. But let's go back to the other policy now of 2007. One of the things that we celebrated for is the establishment of the National Youth Council and the affirmative funds. If NYC was supported as it was supposed to be, then we would be talking about a different story right now.
Right now, exactly. And he can tell us because he was right there.
Yes. And so one of the reasons why we are reviewing this policy is for us to get better and not repeat our mistakes. So again, this policy needs to strengthen the role of NYC, which is not.
But the funding bit, if at all it's assimilated and is swallowed in the ministry, do you think the funding bit will be addressed? Because they really suffered. They really suffered.
Yes. I think it shouldn't be under the ministry. I think
but the funding bit, the funding bit, I mean, if it's under the ministry, then the budget will be allocated automatically. They'll have an autonomy in terms of their expenditure, right? So will it address that?
Yeah, I think it will. It will. Even independent authorities do get funding even when they are not under ministries. So it will. It will, yes.
What is the good thing that comes with this?
No, let me, Ken, thank you so much. One thing we must appreciate one thing. The policy of 2007, one of the milestones that the policy had was bringing the National Youth Council Act of 2009. So the government was very deliberate. And Ken, we must go back in history and begin to do a review of why is the NYC where it is. NYC has been having political challenges because, you see, we are a political economy. So what happened? The process that brought the National Youth Council delegates ended up bringing politicians in quotes. And let me tell you, the ministry has not even been a challenge to National Youth Council. The challenge has been Parliament. Okay. And there are sessions that I was a CEO of NYC, and I go and I try to push the budget issue. Ken, do you know what the MPs could tell me? When a CEO, do you want us to sign our death certificate? Because
it will fund
if I'm an MP, I can mobilize women. And I have a young person who is from the university with the gift of the gab, and they also have funds to mobilize youth in equal measure. MP said, you know what, go check this process so that we don't have, and we can benchmark Rwanda, Uganda, they have non-politicized processes whereby the outcome of the delegate is not kind of a politician. Remember, some politicians, MPs campaigned for these delegates so that you wanted a young person that you can control. Then later, so that is the main challenge. But let me tell you, the government is committed, Ken. And you know one thing is, the youth are the numbers. And people are saying, and young people are like what Akina Stella are pushing, that if you're not on the table, you will be the menu. So we want to bring young people on the table. And this policy is even going to give NYC very succinct roles. And they will
Stella is not assured that it's a good thing to
She is. We work together. Actually,
she's not.
We've sat on tables.
Are you supporting that?
I think if they promise to do it, then they should make true their promise, which
does
not happen in most of the...
Yes, are they
I mean, even in government ministries, it's political. You and I know that it's political. So it's not really a matter of, fine, if it falls under the ministry, then the ministry has to be very deliberate about enhancing the role of NYC. Because if NYC worked as it's supposed to, then we would have a lot of harmony in terms of youth projects, which we don't have now.
Can I tell you that Stella can agree that right now in the process, the CEO, National Youth Council, is at the center. And we must appreciate, Stella, I know within a week we sit with you on a table 3 times or 2 times. Ken, does that not mean openness? Even for the government to bring a young person who has the look and feel, and the optics, the way I look, which is not more of a typical government, tells you there is a deliberateness, even from my CS, to make sure that, you know what, let's open it up for the young people.
Okay.
We have even a CS who even says, when you get a slot, I want more of a young person than myself. Because it's those young people who should be expressing their need. So we are getting there. I'm not saying everything is 100%, but Stella, we agree we are getting there.
In other words, Stella, do you think the good will outweigh the bad?
I hope so. I hope so, yeah. I think we've expected that so much.
She's not. Ken, she's very happy. Behind the scenes, before we come on camera, she's a great person.
I hope, because all we need is goodwill. Yeah, all we need is goodwill.
Okay. Yeah. Then we need to speak about specifically what we're looking at with this policy review. I like the fact that they are thinking of even just the well-being of the youth to begin with, nutrition, you know. They're thinking of that. And I'm looking at the kind of stakeholders that were brought in to develop this. Perhaps tell me, Stella, who were involved in this process?
I know the interfaith sector was involved, and we know the kind of role that they play, especially in terms of health services in this country. Different ministries, we have civil service organizations, the youth serving organizations, and even other organizations that don't work for young people. And different youth groups across the country really came together to give their views. So I really appreciate the different kind of consultations that have been going on and the input in this whole process. But it's not really about who was involved in this process. It's about everything being included in the paper and now the implementation bit.
Okay.
That is the most important thing.
Okay.
Yes.
No, but it's also important because then the question, I had the discussion from Eldoret, and one of the questions that they were trying to address is the involvement of the youth right from the beginning, even in making this decision. So when I'm talking about who are involved, I'm looking at a picture full of the youth saying what they really want, or it's someone saying this is what they want and this is what we want for them.
Ken, the young people involved, we went throughout the country. And I'm telling you, some were so heated that even when I was a CEO of National Youth Council in Kisumu, we were almost being expunged from the room because we just told them, we've not come to answer the questions. You see, the problem sometimes that we've always had is that we have more answers even before people raise the questions. So we told them, we are here to listen to you.
Okay.
And we've listened, and that has been the trajectory that the ministry has taken these forums too. And that's why even we were even very deliberate after that, came and brought faith-based organizations, because we know in terms of value systems, Aga Khan Foundation did a research the other day, Ken, and they said over 80% of young people are very concerned and value sentimentally their religion. But again, when they were asked, over 60% said, if you make money hooks and crooks, no problem.
That's the 2017.
And that also tells you about the value system. So we felt the faith-based organizations are very critical on this area in terms of looking at, we have Chapter 6 of the Constitution in this country that is talking about leadership. We have Article 10 that talks about national values. So how do we bring the values? We brought youth sector organizations, we brought development partners, and Ken, this was deliberate to make sure that all the sentiments and critical inputs of these groups are brought on board.
Okay.
Yes.
Very interesting. But you haven't told us why they wanted to lynch you in Kisumu.
They wanted to, because they said, you know what, we have had this...
several times. So time and again, this is what
we are being told
okay.
what we need to, and we told them this time, we have a document we are making. And we are here to get your input so that because there are many challenges that are faced. Right now, ICT revolution is something that we must up.
Yes,
we have talked about demographic dividends of the young people. We're talking about young people are the majority. Some saying 70%, some saying over 20 million people. But let me tell you, you cannot ignore that. So that's why we are very strategic that we cannot ignore that. Talent is key. Mentorship is what we are also looking into the policy. That a young person should not see that, you know, and we have even been seeing the debate of mentorship with a musician, and you seeing with government exchange of, if they are even saying that I must be paid to mentor the young people. But then can we look at mentorship holistically, such that a young person succeeding in this country should not imagine I must be a politician. Because right now I meet young people and say, Raymond, how can I get into parliament? And I tell them, that's not the only way to get into parliament. The other last thing, Ken, is mindset. Because young people feel that for me to be doing well, I must dress like Ken. I must be on suit and tie. But right now, with the ICT revolution, with the agriculture and going that way, agribusiness, we have millionaires who are putting on T-shirts and shirts. And actually, people in suit and ties like me are slaves. And we don't know.
It's true. They are your employer.
So there are these opportunities. Yes. Zuckerberg, when he came, on a jeans and a T-shirt.
Yes. Stella, you spoke about the ICT revolution. This is key for you. I don't know why. Twice it's been mentioned, and he's also mentioned. Why is this very key in the youth development? Is it the new frontier for success or something?
Yes, it is. One of the biggest concerns, I think, everywhere, and it's a global issue, but it's really big in Kenya, is youth unemployment. Youth unemployment. And we cannot talk about solutions to youth unemployment without looking at the ICT revolution, that you don't need to go to an office to deliver on something. You can sit down as a creative and do something with what you have, the different resources. And when you talk about the space expanding every time and everywhere across Kenya, then we also have to talk about the role of government in this. So how does government come on board now to facilitate that, to enhance that? Young people can access internet, for instance. It doesn't need to be very expensive for a young person to be able to access internet, to come up with a blog, for instance, to do programming, you know. Yeah, so the fact that ICT enables young people, not even young people only, but then you can sit down and work from just anywhere and come up with ideas and share with the world, then that's a big deal.
Okay, I'd like to speak more about the strategies in the next, we have a few minutes on the clock, but I just want to go because I see someone is asking me about the old document. How practical was it? How practical was it, the 2007?
The 2007 was very practical because, remember, it brought the National Youth Council that we're talking about. It brought the affirmative funds.
Yes.
When you're talking about youth fund, when you're talking about Wezo fund, all those came
they were
from,
all in that document?
Yes, because how do you empower the young people? It's not only to build their capacity, but you must give them the resources. And let me also add one thing that Stella said. We are going beyond unemployment, but we are even addressing underemployment. Ken, young people are employed, but mostly they are given the 3D jobs: derogative, demeaning, degrading, dehumanizing, all the types of these jobs that we have. But then some of the areas like governance and participation is looking at even succession management. How do we bring even young people at decision-making points? As much as there are few, yes, I know people may say that, you know, public service, when we have over only, I'll check my statistic, around over 47,000, we have over 18 million young people. It's not enough. But you see what? When they're at the decision-making table, they can affect many others. Me, I'm a young person. I'm the Secretary of Youth. That's a privilege and that's an opportunity that we're really appreciating. But even me, I also must do something and not just say I'm a young person. So age should not only be a qualification, but we must also prove that as much as we are young, we can also do something worthwhile.
Okay, and the president has a big problem with the young people in...
Yeah, and you heard he say that, you know what,
I
give them money, and Stella, you know, some of the young people are given position, they don't pick your phones.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Straight
they change
up,
all of a sudden,
yes.
and they're all over the place.
Does Kibagendi pick calls?
He picks my calls.
Okay. He was my schoolmate, just 2 classes ahead of me.
He's good, he's a good person.
No, actually a class ahead of me. Yes, yes. So he picks
at
phone calls.
School, I remember.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah. Stella, talk to me about the affirmative funds, the proposal to bring them under one umbrella. How will that work to affect the original document and what it was supposed to do at the beginning?
We actually did a document on that, the amalgamation of all the funds into one thing. Is it really good for young people, or is it a threat to young people's progress? One, because of organization. And that is why I keep saying NYC should be supported and enhanced, because one of the things it was supposed to do was to come and regulate and harmonize youth-serving organizations to make sure that young people are very organized. As opposed to what women are. Women are very organized. So one of the threats to this amalgamation is that the women's movement,
They'll take it over.
So makes me happy on one side because I'm a woman and I love the women's movement. But I think it's a threat to young people. They are not more organized.
Both in youth
and women.
Yeah, so I think it needs to be guided.
Okay.
There needs to be quotas that guide certain funds, and young people will be favored in a certain way. Otherwise, the youth will be...
speak to it, but on a very limited scope. There's a task force that is reviewing this. I know there are demerits and merits of a merger, and the demerits, Stella has really canvassed well, how women are organized. You look at Embrace. It doesn't matter which political divide you're coming from, but if it is pushing the women agenda, the young people, again, sometimes the lethargic, we even go to areas whereby they are not even applying for AGPO. They are not even applying for the funds because they feel this government money will be traced. So at the end of the day, they are demerits, and I'll not speak for that because the task force, with whatever way they will direct us, there will be very concrete reasons. And there'll also be public participation in terms of what they are suggesting. Is it right? So I believe they'll get there and they'll give us the information.
And I think it's not a hard task really to do. It's possible to organize young people, and if we're deliberate about it and come up with specific measures to make sure that young people are more organized, then we can really achieve it, and the bringing together of all the funds will not really be an issue of concern.
Okay.
Yes.
It will not be.
So long as youth issues are ring-fenced.
So long as they're organized.
And there's a way they're protected.
And there's a way
they're protected. Because even now, we know the opportunities that are available. I'm exiting the youth. And probably I'll not be able
to... Or you're about to exit. We'll do for you a party.
Actually, I have.
It's emotional.
Actually, I have.
Oh, you have?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm that old. Because the most important thing is when I graduate to the next level, then I had set up systems down here that ensures that the youth are not protected. So I'll still be participating in the things I shouldn't. So long as that protection is guaranteed. And that, they say, is a challenge, Stella.
Yes.
How do we guarantee it, for example? Just in 1 minute, because you have to take a break. How would you, at what point would you think the youth, that protection is guaranteed for the youth, if we have to bring them under one roof? All this.
I think at this point, we need to, before we even launch the document, we need to be very clear about how we are protecting young people and how they are going to be favored at some point. Because then, again, we are saying that women now
are favor? Why not competitive?
Not favor, really. Yes. I totally agree. But then that is why we have affirmative action, right? Yeah, that you facilitate equity so that people are at par. So how do young people step up? That is what we need, deliberate action, specific measures
to make sure. But
at what point? Let me answer at what point.
Yes.
Because when our legislation is very clear, like right now we have the AGPO. If you are deliberate and say that 30%
must.
Because right now, governors and counties and national government ministries, departments are struggling because you are being told, and now even the president went even further, tell us the young people, that give us their names and the directors. Because initially, I'm 45, I text Stella and some few people, gather them in a room. Register the companies, we get the 30%.
And you become the account, sole signatory of that account.
Yes.
All right, stay with me. I'd like to talk more about this, Raymond and Stella. Stay with me. And at the top of the hour, we're also going to speak to Bernardo Juang. Bernardo Juang is in Rongo. We're going to speak to him about the curriculum and the courses that are said not to be of benefit. This is something we need to talk about, right? Yeah, about the courses, man. Probably we went to school and did some of these courses. So we'd like to talk about that, and I'd also like to talk about other aspects in creating opportunities for youth to graduate. For example, you are a CEO, you have transitioned really well. But what about the others? What about the others? I'd like to talk about that. And Lois Wangoi also will be joining us in about 30 minutes with her discussion from Eldoret. Stay with us. We're back with NTV Today. And welcome back. It's 2 minutes past 10. NTV Today continues. My name is Ken Mijungu. With me in studio is Stella Nderitu and Raymond Ochieng. Shortly, we'll be embarking on our discussion. And also in Eldoret, Lois Ongo is on standby with her panel still. She'll be talking to us in about 25 or so minutes. But right now, let's cross over to Homa Bay County, where Bernard Ojwang is. He's also discussing the same topic, but with a twist. Bernard?
Well, thank you very much, Ken. University College in Homa Bay, a constituent university of Maseno University. And remember, a state of confusion here as university students here are saying that both institutions and the Commission for University Education are giving information about the courses that they are doing here, and since the report was released, no learning is taken, as the students are saying that they are demanding an explanation from both the CUL and the university management. And currently we are just going to talk to some of the students here. Just tell us, so far, what are the information have they got from the institution?
Thank you very much. I came to this school in 2016. I didn't know that I'm pursuing a useless course.
Unfortunately, a very good discussion that we can have. We'll try and get to Bernard if the signal stabilizes. It's a very important discussion it's having with the students there. And just before we embark on our discussion, just your thoughts on the fact that they're saying that they're useless courses, you know. Does that bother you as someone who went through the system?
It bothers me, Ken. And I was reading one of the dailies today, I think Daily Nation, and they were giving us behind the scenes how the PS, Higher Education, Professor Suda, was really so much iked by this thing, and making sure and trying to push that we must come to a conclusion for the youth. Because let me give an example. It's not their problem, because we assume that it is a system, it's our education system that should have an enhanced quality assurance. That by the time that you do a course, we cannot. I remember there was a time that even we had the engineering students, whereby there were some, is it Masinde Muliro, I believe, I had sometimes back, whereby they were yet to graduate, but the Engineering Association of Kenya had not approved that course. So in that institution. Yes. So you have young people have gone for 4 years. And 4 years, you are being told you cannot graduate because your course is not. So at the end of the day, I believe Ministry of Higher Education is doing all it can, and this thing must be sorted, and those young people must be given the certificates that they have studied for. It is only fair, and it's only a motivation to people who, and some of them look at the parents that are taking this. Some do not even have. We've seen parents. I know we were in high schools whereby some parents cannot even dress well for that young lady and gracious young man to be in that institution. So we cannot, it can hurt many lives.
All right.
Yes.
You thought?
I mean, I hate blame game, but then there are people who are responsible for quality assurance. And for somebody to enroll in a school and go through a course and then be told it's useless, I mean, it's not fair. But when we understand the role of education, then we know that education is supposed to open up your mind to help you understand and be able to spot opportunities and be able to influence. Then if you understand the education that way, then maybe you know that there's no useless course. There's no useless course. Yeah.
You just need to open your mind.
Yes,
and we have a lot of professionals who are not doing what they went to school for. For example, I'm a lawyer. I don't practice law. So we have doctors.
I did civil engineering.
Yes, yeah.
And engineers are the most boring people. But who talk by numbers. I also did theology as well.
Oh, really?
A lot of things. But you see, it's not, and the way Stella said, the university, the academy is to open up your mind for you to have solutions.
Exactly.
It's not to have that paper to direct you to
a particular job.
Bankers, how many bankers did chemical, biochemical, or even atomic science?
I know.
And they're releasing
but
money.
at least with your engineering, you're engineering the youth.
Oh, sure. Yeah, true.
That's okay. Let's come back to the strategies of this policy. Yeah. And one of the strategies that I'd like to talk about, this is support, transformative leadership, mentorship, participation, and representation. It looks broad. For me, it looks really broad. Perhaps break it down for us.
When it comes to representations and transformative leadership, and this is what we were discussing, that how can young people transit because we realize that Kenya is a little bit, we are getting there, and thank God for the handshake. I believe young people are going to be included in the BBI, because we are talking about, can we look at all sectors and see how we make all sectors formidable, that young people can actually transit. Because the way you had said, I was the CEO of National Youth Council. Right now I'm a secretary. But how many of us are transiting? So that we don't have that, for you to be a vibrant young leader, you must have a government lapel, talking tough, going to parliament. There should be a small section that should be pursuing that. But then can we transit also others in terms of the enterprise development? Can we transit some to private sector? Can we broaden this? So at the end of the day, this part is trying to look at how do we make sure, and there's a passion that the CS and the PS have, that they are looking at a future whereby the National Youth Council will have young people represented in all ministries, departments, and agencies, and even all baranazas up to the county level. So that even if you have a hospital board, there must be a young person. And at the end of the day, it will not be duplicating roles, because it will be structures that are existing and mainstreaming young people to be there. And then it will also make them grow, because if you put me in a hospital board, you'll be opening me around the health sector. And I'll begin to think, I want to develop myself around that area. So that's what that part is going to be addressed.
Stella, your comments on that?
I love the issue of mentorship. I am personally a product of mentorship. So if this can be implemented, really good. And you know, the thing is, with mentorship, you don't need to pick somebody even without a job. You can even pick people with jobs and help them shadow people who are in government, for instance, because government is complex. And how do you help somebody who wants to have a career in government? How do you help somebody who has a career in private sector? So I think it's a very, very good way of modeling and helping young people grow. Leadership, again, very, very important, and coupled with the issue of patriotism and national values, again, very, very important.
It looked to me broad, but I think as you have explained, it really sinks down right now. But there's this that I think is very ambitious. Creativity, talent identification, and development. I think it's so ambitious. I'm wondering how this is going to work out.
Talent and innovation is something we cannot ignore. Young people are talented. Ken, long time ago, if you are in high school and you hear a young person going and telling the father that I want to be a DJ, it was unheard of. It was unheard of.
I took you to school to go and play music in
You are cast from the society. You are an outcast. But right now, DJs,
we envy them.
Actually, my part-time, I'm trying to think about how I can become a DJ over the weekend.
This guy, he wants to do
everything. Because look at this. Look at the art world. It's really paying. So what if we open up these spaces so that young people who are pursuing talent, Wanyama, I believe right now, if you could talk to Mariga's parents, some parents would really feel that your kids are not going the right direction. Carrying footballs, balls going to a pitch, others are becoming lawyers. But right now, look at Wanyama. The amount of money that gentleman is being paid per week.
You'll work all your life, my friend.
Yeah, some of these scandals we are seeing on screens are just jokes.
Yeah, I know.
But at the end of the day, so how can we also, because young people are talented, creative. You know, right now, I think government is really opening up to accepting creative. You know, right now, if you tell a government person that a creative is coming, you'll not get somebody in a suit and tie. He'll come with crazy hairstyle. With
we see them here, the graphics department,
then
with
dreadlocks
and t-shirts and
I want this in 1 hour.
Yes.
They will blow up your mind.
Yeah.
It's true.
And then you will begin, I'll not judge him on the way they dress.
But on the output. Exactly.
I think,
Stella,
maybe to add on that, I think first of all, it's not too ambitious. And let's talk about sports. In every county I've gone to, when I look at their CIDP, there is money and there is an allocation of sports development, even talent identification, and millions of money are set apart for that. Now, going to the implementation itself, nothing. There are no sports facilities, there are no sport equipment, nothing. But there's money allocated to that. So all we need is to make it a reality.
What happened to our social halls all over where the youth went to showcase their talent? They were grabbed and the land stolen and apartments and put up.
Yeah, and remember in Vision 2030, it provides for the establishment of youth empowerment centers in every constituency. Now that is not even working right now. We tried doing a capacity building session in one of the counties, let me not mention, and there's no water, there's no power. So how is it an empowerment center with no power? We're talking about ICT.
Around that? We are reviving the youth empowerment centers. We have a pilot phase of around, right now, over 20.
In how many
various
counties?
Partners. spread across the regions.
Spread.
And they're in the regions. Some of them have got legal issues, but those things will have to be addressed. But then we are also appreciating that the concept of the Youth Empowerment Center was a great concept. So right now we want to harness them so that we open up these spaces, and we are also partnering with the counties. So that if they're existing in a county and counties are saying they do not have funds, then we're telling them, how can we resource these centers? That they are centers through which young people can access information. They can know the tenders that they need to apply to. They can be, capacity building can happen within these centers. So Stella, I want to assure you that, and we'll also bring you on board so that even when we go to pilot some, we also appreciate. So a concerted effort. So even if you have some few funds, pump them in, and then we see how we empower this. Because our government is also about a platform and synergizing, bringing everybody on board. Because everybody is government. Even Stella is government.
Yes. And remember, youth is not a devolved function.
Yes.
So it's upon the ministry and the national government to coordinate with the county representatives, the youth officers, to be able to serve young people. So if you're talking about talent, then we have to leverage on the youth empowerment centers to be able to help youth development.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the strategies that will be very difficult for me is entrenching patriotism and volunteerism. I had a forum here with volunteers just before the awards last year, and what they were telling me blew my mind. But still, I'm just thinking, if it's not inborn in me, how do you do it? Through a strategy? I mean, how will you do it? Through a paper?
Volunteering, why it's very critical, because remember, there's a conversation, and actually there's even a legislation coming in Parliament of how do we strip all these qualifications that you need to put on a young person. A young person walking on the street here who needs to apply for a job will have to clear with HELB, will have to clear with the Credit Reference Bureau, will have to go do a certificate of good conduct. So it tells you that roughly, averagely, you'll need around 5,000 Kenyan shillings. Yet you don't even have the job. You don't even have, your shoes are already torn to walk around dropping your CVs. So that is why we are also working with young parliamentarians who are very critical, so that we make sure that we leverage this. And Ken, why is this then addressing that issue? Because young people do not have experience. Because you're just from high school. So then how can we create a friendly platforms that young people can be mentored through jobs? Because you cannot wake up and just become a secretary. There is a government language. Even if I bring a young person in my position today and they just do a memo can just sack them. Not because they don't have the right intention, because this is how government works, this is how private sector works, the bureaucracy, the language, and how to, you know, how to behave. All these things, etiquettes and power relations are there. So this one will also help build the capacity of young people from high school or from the universities that they can be nurtured.
Okay.
Yeah, because when you volunteer, and we look for a day whereby your volunteering period will be part of your experience.
Okay, so
that then you can now take up here.
So I volunteer, it will be written in my document, my CV, that I worked or I volunteered.
Yeah, because nowadays people look at volunteering, they feel as if you've not done anything. Because sometimes you can have volunteered for 5 years and they say, so what have you been doing with your life? Actually, what I've been doing with my life? I've been working for 5 years.
No, because it's not contractual. So,
True. So if that can also become part and parcel of the experience of those young people, then young people can take, and again, Stella, you agree, I know you will say this, it is about how you can do the job, not about how many papers do you have, as much as papers are very important. But again,
national values, just like leadership, is about culture. If we want young people to be people of truth, of transparency and patriotism, then they have to first see it. It's something that you grow with, and that is why one thing I like about this policy document is that it talks about the role of family. It starts at home, and then it goes to school, and then it goes to the workplace. So our young people going through school, the education system, even the children, learning that you need to work hard, you need to be truthful, you need to be, you know, you have to have values. And then coming into a world where there are no values, you know, you don't work hard and you get so much money, you're a thief and nothing is done to you. I mean, if we want to talk about national values and the role of youth, then it has to be a culture that is seen and practiced.
Okay. And can we stop also bashing the young people too much? Because young people are also products and outputs of our own lifestyles, and because at the end of the day, if you have to bribe your child to do something, then already you are also creating. Because even let me ask you, if a family is driving, then a police officer stops you and you bribe them. At the end of the day, the youth who are in there,
it becomes culture.
You are telling them that it's okay to bribe. So you cannot demand later and say, you cannot do 1, 2, and 3. Can we even have, in terms of professionally, your son wants to do law, your daughter wants to do law, but you try to entice them to do another different course. Bribe them that if you do this, I'll buy for you this. Already that's also value systems in a very soft way.
What you're saying, I hope my uncle is not watching. He has a very bright son.
Yes.
He's doing pharmacy right now. I hope he's not watching because he'll kill me. So he said, he got an A.
Yeah.
But he said, the course that you have been admitted, I'm looking at this family and we have so many teachers, other professionals, but we don't have a doctor or a pharmacist. So what you do, go and do pharmacy. Then I'll open the first one for you.
Wow.
I hope he's not watching, so he'll kill me. Now that you're talking about opportunities, I like to talk about transform agriculture and agribusiness to make it more attractive for the youth. I'll begin with Stella.
Yes.
How do you transform? I heard a story about, I think it's an Asian country where we don't do the traditional farming. We don't go to the gardens and chambers with boots and T-shirts and torn jeans. You can actually wear a coat and you farming with your tie.
Yeah.
So that is what you're looking at? That is what this policy is looking at?
Yeah, I think it's more about awareness, making young people or capturing the attention of young people. That's why they talk about making agriculture more attractive to young people. Because one, it's not really fully tapped into. And I mean, we can't talk about food security enough. We need food everywhere. And if we feed the whole of Kenya, which we haven't, then we can move to the world and feed the rest of the world. I must say, I'm working in Makueni, and there's so many young people. Out of the 15 that we trained, 7 of them are in agribusiness. So they're not only farming, others are actually getting food from farmers and selling that food. So it's an opportunity that.
So they're still doing the same thing, but sort of adding value to what the farmer has done.
Yes.
That's very true. We have an uncle here, Dan Mule, who sells us mangoes. And he has a farm around there. So it's very true. Okay, your point on this?
Yeah, I think Stella has really canvassed it well. Agribusiness is not only doing agriculture, but doing agriculture for business, such that your agriculture is about more of socio-economic empowerment of yourself and even the other larger community. So right now, one of the things that the policy is also going to address, and some of the inputs we've got from different cohorts, is the attitude and mindset. How do we change the minds of the young person? That the way I'd said before, that a suit and a tie is not the only way to be successful. That there's money in the dirt. Can we go and invest in agriculture? Because again, Kenya is an agricultural economy. If you look at what contributes to our GDP, coffee, tea, all these things are
60%.
Yeah, we are an agri-based economy. So then young people, if we are the majority, then we must also be part of agriculture and make sure that.
And agriculture indeed is the future. We have about 10 minutes of your time here. I'd like to talk about 3 things really quick. Where does the National Youth Service play in getting to this? Where does it tie in with what you're talking about here? Let me begin with the second.
The National Youth Service, and right now one of the targets of the policy is to have coordination, such that we don't have NYS feeling that, we are dealing with the youth. When you go to NYS, NYS is the youth. If you go to NYC, we are the youth. When you go to Youth Enterprise Fund, we are the people who have the money for the youth. So at the end of the day, when that synergy applies, and remember, when you talk with the senior citizens in this country, they'll tell you, I've been with the senior citizens, when they say, oh, you are in NYS, which class? And some of the value systems that NYS did in terms of attitudinal change, in terms of just life skills, and right now NYS is also really pumping into skills. We have also a huge part of agriculture. You had the farms that NYS has. And again, this will also be a contribution into the agribusiness area. So NYS is a critical component that well supported. Right now we've seen the government has, through the CS, it has been re-engineered. The president has assented into a new bill such that they also become a parastatal. They make decisions and they wake up this giant that we will even make parents be happy to say, before you go to the university, I would want you to be at the NYS, so that you have hands-on
that people will
hands-on skills, so that we are not only on the phone. Young people even go to family meetings, and land is being distributed, and they don't know they are on.
They discover.
And even your section is being taken. They say, take that one from Ken, and you are nodding, and they don't know you are on listening to music. So at the end of the day, we must transit the young people. These are opportunities.
Okay.
I think for me, it's just an issue of training and reminding young people of the need for service to the country, and that's how we can use NYS for the best of this country. It's a very good platform. Again, that needs to be protected. Look at the NYS funds. Yeah, we keep saying it's important, but it's not protected. Yeah, the cases
but right now
don't have the light
with
of
this
day.
new legislation and
Yeah,
governance
we
structure,
hope
completely.
it
is completely
Yes.
transformed
Yeah.
to be effective and efficient.
I hopefully will not see NYS 3,
Yeah, I hope
right?
so, yeah.
The other issue I wanted to talk about just briefly again is
Yeah.
something you've mentioned, the transitioning of youth.
Yes.
Yes, transitioning.
Youth transition should be looked at very keenly because, again, I think sometimes when you talk about the youth bulge, it even becomes so tired because it is a fact. The young people are many, and the more we transit these young people and the policy is looking at it broadly across all sectors so that we don't have young people only feeling that there's only one way to heaven. But there are very many ways. I know I'm not quoting the Bible, but I'm just saying there are many avenues through which young people can be empowered. And there are also strategies to ensure that that happens, but also linking relevant stakeholders in a coordinated framework so that the government works hand in hand with the private sector. And they can know private sector, and we know in terms of the skill set match. And I think that is also what is also coming to the challenge that we have with the courses, whereby we should even reach to a point whereby, and this is also what will synergize, is that young people who are coming from the universities, we are training for skills. You know, the likes of Canada as a country definitely embraced one thing, that vocational training became fancy. Right now in Kenya, if you say that I'm going to a university, I'm going to a polytechnic, which one looks inferior? A polytechnic looks inferior. But in Canada, how did these people change the economy? That polytechnics are very fancy. Actually, to say that you are a technical institution is very fancy. Look at what we are also doing with our TVETs and scholarships and even help going, so that Ken right now to get a plumber, they sometimes advertise themselves with funny papers, you know, and you may find a name that you find at Gigiri is the one you find at Truaka, is the one that you find where. Because young people you can be a plumber in this country and you can be wealthy.
Yes.
So can we look at also skills? So we must broaden transition of the young people. So that what saddens me, I don't only want to see young people feel actually calling themselves kiongozi because they believe that our next lifeline should be politician.
Not everyone can be a politician.
Yeah, can be a politician.
I have to add on the TVETs. I met one of the guys serving in the TVETs, and his issue was very few young people are willing to join TVETs. And there is just that perception that it's not really good. I don't think I'll get a job, which is not. So maybe we need to work on, all youth serving organizations need to work on that perception so that more young people begin to, you know, be willing to take up that. But again, they need to be facilitated, very well facilitated. And, you know, there are no libraries, there's no equipment, you know, and it's supposed to be more practical. So it's a 50-50.
You know, the time I went to
we can use the word inadequate. You know, no means there is no library that is.
Okay,
inadequate, not enough.
Yeah, not enough, so that we work towards that.
And that can be, you know, education devolved.
Education is
yes,
not...
it's actually a shared
function.
Yes,
and that's one of the areas that you see the governors can invest in libraries.
Yes.
And it will not cost them over a period of 4 years or 5 years, proper library in your area, and that would be great service.
And that's why, Ken, the government is also trying to push the governors. These pennies that we get, can we also use
even
them?
Personal money, I mean, what legacy do you leave? Can you imagine having a library, a Mike Sonko library in Nairobi to complement what already exists? It will really be good.
I have to add the issue of political correctness because one of the things that I work a lot in counties, so my issue has always been, why would governors invest so much on bursaries to primary and high school students, which is actually a national government function, and not really focus on the TVETs, which actually is under county governments, you know? So, but then why do they do that? Again, goes back to the citizens. If you don't do that, chances are that So citizens also, and we have to accept that there is the issue of citizen responsibility. Understand what your leaders need to do for you to benefit from that.
Okay. And I was about to tell you that, you know, where TVETs were killed and polytechnics, the time I went to school, we had art and craft. We had fully functional workshops in primary schools. That just died. Home science was practical. That just died with the new curriculum. So perhaps that's where we killed it. And because I would go to high school and you're thinking of power mechanics, you're thinking of art and design because of what you learned from the primary. But they discouraged that. And finally, we have about 3 minutes, and you have to conclude this. Stella, just another document that will gather dust. What do you think?
I hope not.
You
I hope not.
Yes.
I hope not. Because if we implement this, then we move a step further. I hope it's not going to just sit down and gather dust. I hope that the ministry will take the lead, in coordinating stakeholders to do this. For instance, I work with the Emerging Leaders Foundation. The document talks about leadership and mentorship. So we have committed to actually work with the ministry to help in that. I hope that the ministry actually involves the different organizations working in sports and talent identification. So this policy is not only about the ministry or the national government. No, it's about everybody.
Okay.
So I think to make sure that it doesn't gather dust, then there needs to be a lot of orientation on the youth policy, especially by enhancing the NYC, because one of the functions of the council was to actually help in that, orient and make sure that there's implementation of the policy. So I hope that we work on implementation.
Now that it involves all of us, probably, to not gather dust.
Yes, including the media.
Including, everyone.
Ken, I confirm the commitment of our CS, PS, and CAS. Those three leaders are very deliberate, and that's why this was opened up. And with the order and the platform that it will create, we believe it will not only be the ministry. The ministry will be a coordinator. And this framework will bring everybody on board. That's why youth-serving organizations are very key. We work hand in hand. Faith-based and all the key sectors that represent the young people are brought on the table. So we hope, moving together, we are going to be stronger. And we're going to be better. And it will be a game changer.
ELF is satisfied?
Yes, yes, we will be here to keep them to account.
Thank you very much, Raymond.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming to share your thoughts with us. And thank you, Stella, for coming. We'll invite you again. Yes, it's a conversation that can't end until the civic education is done and everyone comes on board. Thank you very much. Let's now link up with Lilian Kiarie, who is at Kasarani, if I'm not wrong. And Lilian, good morning. We understand that the Kasarani Sacco members are down there to demand their payment. What's happening? All right, we have a small challenge with Lilian, but we'll be speaking to her, and we are told that the Kasarani Sacco members are down there to demand their payment. Well, let's cross over now to Lois Wangoi, who is in Eldoret. She's also continuing this discussion with her panel. Lois?
You've been having at our Nairobi studios. We continue the same with my panel here in studio, and seated next to me is Madam Caro Cherono, and next to her is Dennis Tirop. They are youthful leaders here in the county of Uasin Gishu, serving in different fields. We start with you, Dennis, and there's very interesting feedback coming here. You had spoken on the 100% transition to secondary schools, saying that that is just an example of how the government puts in quite a number of frameworks without involving the youth. You did critique that move, saying there should be 100% transition to something, just not to secondary schools for everyone. And so Davis Kirimi on Twitter agrees with you. He says, as a high school teacher and at a rural day school, and none is better placed to see that than me. 100% transition thing is populist, yet devoid of much sense. Some are just not cut out for the world of academia. It strains us as teachers. Your feedback on that?
And I totally agree with him. That's essentially the point I was making, you know. So when you find people who are not well primed for class, they have other talents that need to be, you know, enhanced and nurtured to maturity. They might be good in sports, they might be good in artwork, they might be good in carpentry, you know, they might be good in electrical contracting, you know, some of these things. And that is why we have the vocational training institutes. So it does not make sense really to insist that they transit to secondary education, yet we are pumping so much money through the county governments and the national government into our vocational training institutes. They need students, they need people to train. So have them go there. So it is still important to ensure that the education system really is competence-based, you know. So what are you good at? Let us nurture that. Not forcing general solutions on everybody.
To all the youth in general.
It's like judging an elephant's prowess by climbing a tree. Not everybody can do that. A monkey can do it, but a fish cannot. You know?
Yes, yes.
But if you go into the water, then the fish will beat the monkey hands down. So it's really about priming the environment through which these youths operate and ensuring that they get maximum support from the government.
Okay.
Yeah.
And keeping on feedback, Madam Caro, we did listen to the conversation Ken was having in studio, and you picked a particular item that Stella and Derito spoke on. She's not to quote her verbatim, but she was of the opinion that it does not necessarily matter who sits at the framework table when youth policies are being structured. What matters is the implementation. Your feedback on the same?
Allow me to borrow a line from the National Youth Policy 2015-2020 or towards 2020. Sorry? What I'm saying is, allow me to borrow a line from the National Youth Policy 2015-2020.
Okay.
Actually, the third pillar, it's built or it's revolving around 3 pillars. The third pillar that talks about the government's policy being of greater democratic participation, equitable economic and social progress for all, and inclusive changes. So underline democratic participation. In this case, I do not take decision making being excluding the beneficiaries. In this case, we are talking about the youth.
Yes.
So it actually does matter who sits at the table. At the moment when it's being structured through to even the implementation phase, so that now we have the goodwill and the ownership. You know, we actually need the youth to own the whole process. We need their goodwill, we need their input. So it does matter. And you see, it's not just enough to consult them or involve them at the beginning. They need to be part of the implementation, even the monitoring and the evaluation bit. They need to monitor the progress and evaluate the process and see where the amendments can be placed.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. Now let's focus on the issue of inclusivity, of course, coming in from that particular feedback. Dennis, do you feel that the youth have the capability to sit at the talking table? Of course, we want to believe there has been that through this particular policy that will be launched. But even away from Nairobi, how about a youth who's somewhere in Kubujwe ward, for instance, where you serve in the county of Nandi? Do you feel like the government has this 100% inclusivity, such that when the conversation on the launch of the policy starts, then it's not something foreign, it's not something like that Kiprono will hear from home and say, oh my goodness, what's going on? Let me listen in. Let me get to understand this particular new framework. Is there that sort of inclusivity to ensure, even as we head towards this launch, that indeed Wanjiku, the youth on the ground, totally understands where this journey has been from?
Okay, thank you. Inclusivity is important. It's just the same way a doctor would attend to a patient. You cannot purport to be a doctor somewhere, you receive a call from a patient, and the patient is like, I'm sick. Even before consulting him to understand what exactly the symptoms are, you sit there, you guess and tell him, oh, you're sick. I think we should give you Panadol for your headache. That is not how to go about it. You need to engage him to understand what exactly the problem is, to understand exactly what the challenge is, and then, and only then, can you now give recommendations in terms of medication for that problem. So the same really applies to this whole issue. And I think the Constitution is actually very clear on the need for public participation in almost everything that is done. And in as much as we have a devolved unit of government or system of government, it does not mean that the national government and the county governments are mutually exclusive. No, they're actually supposed to work in tandem to enable them solve these issues that bedevil the youth and every other facet of the society. So when it comes to this policy, I would want to believe that it is in the best interests of the youth and the government itself to ensure that they liaise between the national government and the county governments, so that through the Department of Youth, I understand I want to believe every county has a Department of Youth Affairs. So through them, then they could easily organize public fora through which these youths can actually raise their issues and critique this policy that is upcoming, so that once we have it in place, we don't need to keep changing it. It has to at least cover a longer period of time and ensure that the youth are participating in the entire process, the entire value chain, from the development all through to the implementation and monitoring and evaluation, as she has said. said.
Yes,
so
yes.
I think I would want to agree with her fully on that.
Okay. And I want us to also look at the issue of resources, and this particular policy and many other policies that we have seen the government come up with previously do focus a great deal on matters resources, because therein lies the platform to boost our youth towards empowering themselves in various fields, whether in politics, whether in development, all these areas. Currently we have so many resource platforms. We have the Youth Fund, Uwezo, Women Fund, we have the County Revolving Funds, and Women Reps Affirmative Funds. When Ken was having his discussion with the panel, he did ask this particular question. Why I want to throw it to you is because you serve at county level and not within the national government. There are those of the opinion that these funds, it's about time that they should be consolidated or merged. Is that the feeling within the counties, or are they rightfully so serving their different purposes in ensuring that we are able to equip our youth when it comes to resources? We could start with you, Carol.
Thank you very much. I would like to highlight the fact that both the national government and the county governments have put in place measures, policies that actually favor the youth in terms of resources. And in this case, talking about the Youth Enterprise Fund, you actually find that many of the youths have been able to access that fund. And initially, when it began, it used to favor the youth in terms of the requirements that one needed to meet before the funds were availed.
Okay.
At this particular time, the rules have changed. You'll find that you still need the collateral now. And for instance, the youths who were actually winning the government tenders, most of them were initially required to just produce the letter of undertaking from the government agency or the private sector firm. But where we are right now, they're expected to have a collateral, which many youths do not have.
Right.
Coming to talk about the other funds, such as the Affirmative Action Fund, I think it's serving something that is completely different from just the youth. See, it's talking about the women and the youth and even special needs in the community. So that's a completely different fund altogether. Coming to talk about the other funds that are within the county level, for example, the county government of Uasin Gishu have got a fund that is called the Inua Biashara Fund that is yet to be rolled out, but the act has already been passed. Yes, and right now there's a committee that is being put in place to manage the fund. In there's a youth representative. And you'll still find that this is a fund that is specifically targeting the youth within the county government of Uasin Gishu, within the presence of the county government of Uasin Gishu. We have the Inua Biashara Naeka Fund that is actually focusing at the agricultural sector, where many of the youths in Uasin Gishu are involved in.
So
now, what I'm trying to say here is that it is important that these funds are treated separately. Yes, probably just have a uniform policy that actually caters for all. But we cannot have a single regulator because it also comes with its own challenges, including there will be no particular treatment to the special needs that the society needs in general.
And as you wind up, what are some of the bottlenecks that as a young person you would want the government to deal with? Of course, from experience, from the previous policies that we have had, even as they plan for this particular launch, Dennis.
So first, on the issue of whether or not we should merge these funds, it's a yes and no, depending on how you look at it. For example, as she said, the Affirmative Action Fund is usually set aside for the ladies in our society. So you cannot purpose to bring it under the youth fund, which is accessed by both males and females who are under 35. But when you look at the youth, we have the Youth Fund and the Uwezo Fund. Both of them are served from the national government. The Uwezo Fund has boards at constituency level who are supposed to regulate how this money is accessed and paid back. Then the Youth Fund has representatives from Nairobi to the constituency and the county. So don't you think that is duplicity? So when it comes to the Uwezo and the Youth Fund, maybe we could merge it and just have control from one place, which is Nairobi, and then just have these representatives following through at the county level. But going back to bottlenecks, it is precisely what she's raised. You find that before the county governments came, we used to have these funds administered from Nairobi with representatives in the county levels. But now most counties are going through the county assemblies to rationalize and have these funds incorporated into the county units. But you realize that initially how these funds were thought out, you really needed serious collateral, title deeds or maybe guarantors with a specific amount of money in the bank and whatnot. So that is a challenge. Where do you get such people when maybe your pool is all youth? You know? So at the county level, we realized that different departments had ideas of having different funds, which we have decided to merge them together and have one common revolving fund, but with the representation from the departments that participate in resource distribution and capacity building, because maybe the Department of Youth focuses on enabling youths who are participating in business within the county, the Department of Trade, the same Department of Agriculture and whatnot. So having all these voices under one umbrella and having representation from these different departments is going to enable us come up with a policy that is really going to be suitable for the youth. But on the requirements now in terms of security and collateral, I think it is important to deregulate as opposed to regulating so much in a bid to avoid loss of money. I think we should instead empower and ensure that these businesses that actually borrow this money can run full term and grow, have market, so that they sell their products, make their money, repay the loans, take more, and expand the base. So more of deregulation, more of enabling.
More of enabling.
Yes.
Okay, many thanks, Dennis Tirop. Many thanks, Carol Cherono, youth from the county of Uasin Gishu, just giving us their perspective ahead of the national youth policy launch of what they expect and what the previous policies have done for the youth in our society. They are excited about it, but they say it's about time the youth are involved in that particular chain, right from development of the framework to monitoring and evaluation. Many thanks for having joined us from our Eldoret studios. In the meantime, NTV Today continues, and now I take you to Nairobi for more updates from across the country.
And thank you very much, Lois Wangoi, and your panel for speaking to us and adding your voice to this discussion. Until this policy is implemented, I guess there's a lot of discussion that must be had. There's a lot of civic education that must be conducted, and of course it has to be shared across. And most importantly, the youth need to get involved with this. Well, this is a discussion that we intend also to have with the top ministry leaders as soon as we can get them. The draft is already out, and a lot of input has been done on that. And there are some of the things that we didn't even mention. But if you look across from what we have in that policy, it's far-reaching and it involves everyone. So I think it's an important thing. Well, we're also following stories that are happening around you. And one of the stories that we have for you this morning is from Kasarani. And this is about the Ekeza Sacco owners or the contributors or the people who are involved in that Sacco who are claiming payment of the money. And my colleague Lillian Kiera is on standby to talk to us about what's happening. Lillian, good morning. Good to see you. Sorry for that technical hitch, but I guess we have you back now. Tell us what's happening right behind you. I see a long line of people.
Okay, Ken, we are here at Kasarani Stadium. Today is a day that 53,000 members of Ekeza Sacco have been waiting for in bated breath because they are set to know the fate of their savings. What we know right now is that about 2.5 billion shillings is at stake here, which is the deposit that the members have been saving for the last about 3 years. What we know is that the owner of Ekeza Sacco, who is the chairman, who is David Ngari, aka Gakuyo, had been operating two different companies, which is the Gakuyo Real Estate. At the same time, he was operating the Ekeza Sacco. So we know he illegally opened the common bond and started asking members to also save with the Ekeza Sacco, which is not allowed because he does not have a front office according to the Sacco laws. So what we know is that 2.5 billion shillings is what the deposits of the members, and right now they have only paid about 100 116 million shillings back to members. The members want to know what is going on. We know that their license was revoked in March 2018 by the Commissioner of Cooperatives, Madam Mary Mungai, and she just reinstated that license 2 days ago, saying that now that the report is set to be released today, she wants to bring back the license, to give them back the license so that she can see if the Sacco is going to be able to give the money back to the members. What we know is that Ngare has said, he's also the bishop of the Calvary Chosen Center in Thika, and he was not willing to talk to the members previously, and they had to about 2 times or 3 times go to his church and demand to have him talk to them. What we know is that right now he's set to come here and tell the over 53,000 members what is set to go on. Previously, he had said that he was going to auction his property so that he could be able to pay them back, but this has not been the case. So I'm joined here by one Peter, who has been saving with the Ekeza Sacco. So Peter, you can just tell us, what is the situation? What brings you here?
Well, I'm a member of the Ekeza Sacco. I've come to follow up on my savings. Yeah, true.
How much money had you saved?
53,000. Yeah, true.
Okay, when did you join the Sacco?
Sometimes in 2017, early. Yeah, true.
When you were asking for the money, what were the officials at Ekeza Sacco telling you?
Well, they have been taking me round and round. I have been to the office around 5 times, and they have been giving me promises that have not come to fulfillment. Yes, true.
So what do you want to hear from today?
Well, I need my money back. Yeah, true.
Ken, everybody is saying they need their money back. The lines, thousands of people have already started streaming in. Some are already inside the stadium, and all of them are asking for the same thing. They need to know what is the fate of their money. They need their money back. So we will be following up, and we will update you in the subsequent bulletins. Back to you.
All right, Lillian, thank you very much. At about 2,053,000 members claiming that money, that's an average of 39,000 shillings per member that needs to be paid back. Well, let's go back now to Homa Bay County, where Bernardo Juang is also on standby. Bernard, sorry for that interruption earlier, but now we got you. And the discussion is about the curriculum and the courses. Tell us what the students there are telling you about the fact that some of the courses they're doing might be suspect.
Well, thank you very much, Ken. Right now we are at Tom Mboya University College, the constituent college of Maseno University. What's going on here? Currently, students are currently demonstrating, and whatever they are saying that they are demanding to know from the school administration and also the Commission for University Education, just to tell them on whether the exact course that they are doing are genuine. And what's going on? Police officers have been deployed here, and the students have been forced to move, run away from this institution. And currently, I'm going to talk to one of the students here. Just tell me, what do they want? Have they they maybe clarification from the institution? You said with their name.
I'm Clinton Odhiambo, a student of Tom Mboya University, September 2017. What's going on in the newspaper and all over that in our school, 25 courses out of 33 are not approved by the CUE. And we wanted a request from the CU or a representative from the CUE, so that to make sure that our 4 years is guaranteed, that we are not doing a useless course as per the newspaper.
Have you tried maybe seeking clarification from the university management?
Yeah, we have talked to, we are a constituent of Maseno, and the VC of Maseno, the parent university, was here, and he told us the issue will be sorted out and the report will be given out by Friday. So students have boycotted class until that Friday, so we'll listen for the report from the VC, who is our parent university from Maseno.
Currently, we are seeing police are all over.
Yeah, police are all over. Yesterday, one of our leaders talked to the OCS, and the OCS said the strike is illegal and shouldn't happen. And today, the students have gone to the strike, but the OCS said that shouldn't happen. So police are all over chasing, but I personally am also on the strike. I opted for the peaceful means to solve these solutions.
Well, thank you very much. Ken, you've just heard from one of the students there, and he's saying that some of his colleagues are currently demonstrating. They want to know they want to know the exact information from both Commission for University Education and also the institution here, Tom Mboya University College. And they are saying that according to the report that was released yesterday by the Commission for university education, they were saying that Tom Mboya University College are only allowed to offer 3 courses, but according to the student, they are saying that when they came here, they were told that this university is offering 33 courses, and they are also saying that apart from the challenge that they are getting, they are saying that this university lack facilities, and they are also some of the steps that was taken the Commission for University Education. Back to you. Remember, we'll be following them as they are going on with their strike. We'll be talking to them and we'll be filing that story for our subsequent bulletin. Back to you, Ken.
Bernardo Juang, thank you very much. Bernardo is following that story from Homa Bay, and indeed we'll have all the details later. But we have a few minutes before the top of the hour. Let's take you now live to Parliament, where the Teacher Service Commission is before the Education Committee presenting their budget policy statement for consideration. Some of the things we know as that right now is that 12,626 teachers need to actualize 100% transition, and TSC has no funds to employ more teachers in the current form. And of course, this is a discussion that is continuing. Let's listen in now.
Put all the teachers who have been trained using government resources into very good use. Then you deal with other issues as you progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Before even I give Honorable Njendi, just to comment.
Right, a small challenge with that, but Sharon Murang'a is live for us from the Parliament buildings, where the Teachers Service Commission is making contribution to the budget policy statement that needs to develop into the budget statement that will be read later on in the year. That's in June. She'll be reporting for us from Parliament, and obviously she'll be sharing that information in subsequent bulletins. But that's about what we had for you on NTV Today. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ken Mijungu, and NTV Sasa is on air in a few minutes. Good morning.